All right. Thank you for tuning in to a playoff edition of NBA Live Stream of Consciousness, rocking with you here on a Friday night. Play-in games, the final ones are going underway. So after those are done, I'll do a quick recap and break down those series. It looks like Atlanta's probably going to pull this one out. So um, I think that that series might be interesting. I don't really think whoever plays Phoenix really has a chance, but let's go talk about the other series. And we'll talk about them as far as people's interest in them and then the bet lines on them. As far as bet lines go, the most competitive series by Vegas's standpoint is Brooklyn versus the Celtics. Brooklyn is a plus 125 on most websites. So if you put 100 up, you get 125 back for every bet. So they're saying that they're underdog. If you've listened to some of my episodes previously, I'm just not really that impressed by Boston. Their big flourish at the end of the season where everybody started to crown them. I was always skeptical of who they played at that point. I didn't think they played any team. If you go back and look at it, they didn't really play any juggernaut team at full strength during any part of that run. So I just didn't see it as this, stamping of a title contender like everyone else did. So I'm going to go with Brooklyn. I just think that, the best player in the series generally wins, and KD is by far the best player. And then I think that they're going to have problems with guarding Kyrie Irving consistently. I do think that Boston's offense will bog down as the playoffs begin. Playoff basketball and regular season basketball is so different because in regular season basketball, you're just playing games, 2 games in 3 nights, 3 and 4 nights. You play Philadelphia, who has a monstrous center this night. Then the next game, you're at Brooklyn. You have KD and Kyrie Irving. Next night, it's the Knicks, who are trash. Like, it's just, there's no, feel and flow that you get to it. The NFL isn't different than the NFL's regular season isn't much different than the postseason because it's the same schedule. You prepare for the team all week and then you play them. In the playoffs, you really get to key in on players. You have days off, sometimes multiple days off in between the games, and you can really start to set a strategy. Okay, this player likes to drive right. We're going to drive this player right. Anytime he goes this way, we're backing off. We're trapping at this point. You can really put a strategy in versus a team. For a team like Boston, I think one of the bigger strategies are going to be who are they going to play off? I don't believe that Tatum has ascended up there to the big boys table. I still think he's a notch below that elite table. The stat that I think that is the most interesting when it comes to that is 11. Jason Tatum in this run that they've had is shooting 11 threes a game. And the last time I checked, about 2 weeks ago, he was shooting them at a 45% clip. That's more threes than Steph Curry has ever shot, at a better clip than Steph Curry's ever shot. So if you think that this Jason Tatum is the player that he's going to be going forward, you have to believe that he is now a better shooter than Steph Curry. I don't believe that. You feel what I'm saying? I just don't believe that. Another thing is, they're going to play off certain guys. This kid Derek White, that they added onto their team. I think he's shooting below 30%. They're not going to guard him, and these players that shoot poorly, the nerves and the yips start to come to him because you go in every night knowing now they're not going to guard me. You miss 2 shots in a row to start off the game, it starts getting in your mental and your mind frame. I think defensively, they're not going to be able to guard the Nets, Robert Williams or no Robert Williams. Robert Williams played in the game that they played on ABC in Sunday morning that the Celtics won barely. And I don't think he made that much of a difference. Their matchups on KD and Kyrie Irving, technically they have the guys to guard them, but technically they had the guys to guard them last year, and they flamed through them. So I think the Nets are starting to hit a bit of a stride. I really like the way that Bruce Brown has been playing as of late. Um, I think another key factor in the series is Ben Simmons when he comes back, what he's going to look like when he comes back. He's the type of player that what they're going to ask him to do in these minutes is perfect because he could just play minute stretches, be a small ball 5 or a 4, guard Tatum, especially any time that Tatum starts to really heat up, and they don't need too much for him. I think this is actually the best type of scenario for him. They don't need him on the ball. He could just be a screener, focus on making his free throws, and that would be the end of it. Like I think, one of the big important factors in playoff basketball is, I've heard today that, okay, well, he's going to be out of shape and they're going to hunt him. But if you're hunting him, who are you hunting him with? Like, you're going to put him in like actions and stuff like that. That takes the ball out of Tatum's hands. And just in my personal opinion, there's no one on that team besides Jason Tatum that can get them shots late. What is the offensive set that they're going to be going to? What's the action? With the Nets, you already know the type of plays and actions they're going to be running, 2-man game with KD and Kyrie. What action is Boston running? If you get the ball out of Tatum's hands, which teams are going to do, because they're going to play hard off of a guy like White or other non-shooters that are going to be on the court at a time. Who else is going to step up and score? Is it going to be Jaylen Brown? Do you really think that Jaylen Brown can go toe-to-toe with the KD Kyrie? I don't think so. So to me, I think you just really have to wipe out with this regular season run. It never impressed me. Once again, the shooting clip from Jason Tatum, I'll say it again. He was taking 11 threes a game, which would be the most in the league, and shooting them at a high 45% clip, which would be higher than Steph Curry ever shot him. So if you believe that Jason Tatum is the player that he is right now, and he's just ascending, and this isn't just some hot streak, then you're saying to me that he is a better shooter than Steph Curry. And I don't believe that. And I just don't believe that. If you're a real fan, if you remember that DeRozan had this stretch where he was at like 11 straight 35-point games, 50%, only Wilt Chamberlain had done it. That was just a run that he was going on. I think it's a similar thing with Tatum. This is not the player he is. He's just hot. And a good chance to fall off will be a playoff series versus a veteran team like this, with players who have been on the highest stages and won on the highest stages. So in that series, I'm going to go with Brooklyn. The next series that I think there's going to be a contested series, or at least Vegas thinks so, is Philadelphia versus Toronto. This is a big series for Philadelphia. Obviously a big series for James Harden. As a guy who is a Joel Embiid fan, this is the one series I didn't want for Toronto because of the way that they've trapped him in the past. They've been one of the best teams at getting the ball out of his hands and in double and triple teams. I don't think that they can be as effective as they were before because he's not as much of a back to the basket, bruiser as he was before. He runs a lot of face-up game. He runs a lot of face-up game at the top of the nail. You can see where the guys are coming when you're at the top of the perimeter. He runs a lot of face-up. So when you have a player like that, it's really hard to double team them when they're doing that. But I do think they're going to send a lot of bodies on him. It's going to be a lot on James Harden. His stats, the first 2 times that they played them when James Harden was traded, they were terrible. And he looked slow. He looked like he cannot beat any of their wings off the dribble. It seemed like it was either step back 3 or nothing. I boasted after the end of the trade that it looks like Philadelphia won this one in a rout, but after that first week, we haven't really seen Harden play that well. Now, you could say, if you want to look at it glass half full, like, hey, he had a long time in between those games, and he wasn't playing any back-to-backs, wasn't on the road, and he's going to get a similar, rest schedule now that the playoffs have come. So you're going to be able to get this same effort and energy from him now that the playoffs have come. And also, he's very incentivized to have a good series because he's looking for another contract. That's one way that you could look at it. The glass half empty way that you could look at it is just like, hey, man, maybe he's just finished. Maybe this is the player that he is. And if this is the player that he is, Toronto is the worst team for him to play because they have tons of athletic wings. Even the small guy, Fred VanVleet, is an elite defensive player. This might be the worst series for him. So a lot is going to rest on his shoulders. We'll see. I think everyone's going to be watching those games closely to see what type of burst and the way he looks. I was watching a highlight of his the season that him and Russell Westbrook were together on the Rockets. And this was like 2 years ago. He just looked thinner. It was crazy how thin he looked in that thing. He's gained a lot of weight. And I don't know, man. It's hard to say that they lost a trade when the guy that they traded still has not played the NBA game yet. And it seems like he cares more about, wearing, fits on the sideline and being like a celebritant than actually being a basketball player. It's hard to say you lost a trade where you traded a guy who doesn't play for a guy who's actually playing. But they traded some depth away in that trade. And so we'll see. On another thing that Philadelphia has to be concerned with is Matisse Thybulle. Cannot play because of vaccination status in the games at Toronto. His comments about the type of medicine that he's into makes it seem like he's not getting vaccinated anytime soon. So he's not going to be available for this series. So the last game in particular that they played against Toronto, Pascal Siakam killed him. Tobias Harris can't guard him. It doesn't seem like he can guard anybody. There's just a woeful trade by Elton Brand. And it reminds me of something like a good NBA GM will hunt the GMs that don't know what the fuck they're doing. And, Elton Brand had just gotten to that job because the summer before they had fired boy because he was, ghost Texan and burner Texan about hating Joel Embiid. I think that the Clippers took advantage of him in that trade. They traded way too much. They traded a lot of assets for Tobias Harris, and they look like they're going to dump him into space this offseason. But that's the Clipper side of the things. I definitely think that Thybulle and the games that play in Philadelphia, they can't afford to lose a Philadelphia game. They have to protect home court advantage and try to get a split in Toronto. They can't afford to lose one of these games in Philadelphia. I know that for sure. That's one thing I know for certain. They do need to get some play off the bench, maybe make some shot making from Danny Green and Shake Milton. They're playing b-ball, Paul. It's sad the way Doc Rivers, I don't know if you saw this, but Doc Rivers got into a spirited debate with one of the reporters who asked him why hadn't he playing Paul Reed, the younger player, all year. And he said, I'm going to say it slow for the people who don't understand. He plays against smaller guys. And I think that was just bullshit. Like Doc got to grow up. And, one thing I always disliked about Doc was he just never developed younger players. And, you're seeing Maxey flourish. So, I guess that's what he would throw in your face. But that's a situation where he had to play him. You look at the situation that we're looking at now with Paul Reed, and I think this is similar to his time with the Clippers. It's just like he doesn't play young guys unless he's forced to. And I think as an NBA coach, it's incumbent on you to make your younger players better, to make sure that they get minutes. It's 82 games, find time for them, have them learn. It reminded me of Mike Malone with Michael Porter Jr. In the bubble. He finally started playing him, and yeah, there were some hiccups on defense, but if you would have played him in the regular season, he could have gotten over this. And some of these coaches, they're just so headstrong. I'm not playing rookies. And it's just like, this is your job, is to get players better. If they didn't need, if every player came out the womb ready, then they wouldn't need you. Like, just these coaches that say that they can't play young guys, to me, it's just trash. On the Toronto side of things, Pascal Siakam, this is somebody that I was writing off for dead. He really ended the season as a tire on fire, and he was just rolling through everybody. He had some great games. Had a great game versus Philadelphia, like again where I say they couldn't stop him. They even put Joel Embiid on him for a couple of stretches. So I think that this is going to be one of those series where you're going to definitely have to give him the jumper. You can't let him get in the paint and slash. You have to really force him to beat you shooting deep. I think that's one of the main things for Philadelphia. But on the Toronto's cases, where do they go as far as guarding Embiid? Are they going to commit to this heavy trap system? As far as just coaching Nick Nurse, I think he's the best in the league, hands down. He's the most innovative guy in the league. I see boxing ones, full court traps. I think that he makes the most out of, he gets the most out of the least in the league. For Toronto, this season is success regardless whether they win this season series or not. So they're playing with house money. But the Philadelphia team is wounded, and this would be a perfect time for them to strike. If they win this series, who knows? I wouldn't put it past them beating the winner of Miami, Atlanta. I wouldn't put it past them beating the winner of Boston versus the Nets. And Kyrie or the Celtics players, neither them are going to be eligible to play if they play Toronto. So, I mean, I think this is the team that if I had to say everybody was avoiding, this would have been the team that I would have avoided. But Philadelphia just got locked in with them. So looking forward to seeing a lot of these guys, OG Anunoby in a big playoff spot, Scotty Barnes in a big playoff spot, Gary Trent in a big playoff spot. So again, they're playing with house money. So, but I would like Philadelphia. I'm going to say I'm leaning Philadelphia in this series, but these first two games are crucial. If they lose any one of these first two games in Philadelphia, I think all bets are off. It's just going to be hard. And obviously, the player to watch, the key to this series is going to be James Harden. James Harden is great if he looked like he did in the first couple of games, if it was just a rest thing. He's gotten over a week to rest, about a week. So the last game they played, over a week, because the last game the team played was on Sunday. Last game that he played, he set out the last game of the season. Last game he played was, I believe, that Friday. So over a week of rest, relaxation, get familiarized with the system. It's time to hoop. He said, no pressure. I don't feel any pressure, and it's time to hoop. He might be one of those guys where he don't care. He seems impervious to shame. He just seems like you can't shame him. Like, he had that terrible game versus the Nets, and he was out partying with Lil Baby and Travis Scott the next night. That same night, he had that terrible game versus the Nets in Philadelphia, where Kyrie was in his dress talking shit. He was out partying that same night. He had that terrible game versus the Spurs. I think he went like 2 of 13 when Kawhi got hurt. Out partying the next night. He's impervious to shame. You can't shame him. So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe he's just like, I'm just going to hoop and let the chips fall where they may. So we'll see. The next series, as far as Vegas odds go, would be the Nuggets versus the Warriors. I just think that there's not really much interest in this series. Besides the fact that Murray, it came out where they said it's on him, whether he wants to play or not. If he feels like he's not ready to play, he shouldn't play. I remember a similar thing happening with Derrick Rose with a different injury, but he came back, played the first game, was in for some reason in the last 2 minutes and tore his ACL, and that was the beginning of the end for him. So, he's already coming off a major injury. If he doesn't feel like he's ready to play, don't play. But if he doesn't play, even if he does play, I just don't see how he could be ready to play the Warriors. Steph Curry's been scrimmaging, so it looks like he's ready to go. I think it's going to be an easy one for the Warriors. I think they might even get a sweep, Jokic, they say, quote unquote, his defense is improved in the defensive metrics, blah, 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 blah. Steph Curry is licking his just chops. That's barbecue chicken rotisserie gold finger licking good. Hell, look, Steph Curry is gonna put him in every pick and roll and drag him from here to Oakland Coliseum. Come on, man. That's gonna be bad, man. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad news. It's gonna be bad news bears for them, man. They're gonna terrorize that boy. So they just don't have the firepower to compete with them. If I'm the Warriors, I'm kind of happy with this draw. Um, this is a series where you're not really going to be threatened. There's not a player I think that can really threaten you. They made a point on the Zach Lowe podcast. Shout out to Zach Lowe and Coach Thorpe that Looney actually guards Jokic pretty well. The only way they could win this series if the quote unquote back-to-back MVP, which was fucking shameful, but we'll talk about that another day, takes over and, gives them a 40-piece every series. The one thing the Warriors don't have is size. But the thing about size is there's generally only about 3 or 4 guys who really, really make you feel the effects of that. Embiid, Giannis, AD, the old AD, and then quote unquote Joker. But we'll see. I think that this one is going to be a rout. On the Nuggets side, I mean, you would have to have just great games by all of their ancillary players: Aaron Gordon, Marcus Moore, Monty Morris, Bones Highland, Will Barton. These guys will have to play like tires on fire the whole series, and I just don't see it. I think this is just a great series to get Steph warmed up, get some cohesion on the team, and then look forward to who they play in my next interesting series, which would be so that series that wouldn't be surprising me if that's 4-1 or even a sweep. 4-1 or sweep. I would not be shocked in the slightest bit. The next series, the interesting series, is Minnesota versus Memphis. You got the young T-Wolves who had a great win. Shout out to them versus the Clippers that played terrible. These are two teams that talk a lot of shit. And I think if you've been rocking with my videos, I said, it's easy to talk shit in the regular season. Cat was talking a lot of shit. It's easy to talk shit in the regular season. But when that postseason comes up, it's not that easy. Cat had one of the worst games of all time for a great player in a win and take all game. One of the worst games of all time. Got fouled out, dumb fouls, dumb shots, looked completely frustrated, crying after every call. Terrible. The Ant-Man bailed him out. But now it's them versus Memphis, another young team who talks a lot of shit, who hasn't really done anything either. I think I wouldn't say it's a pick 'em. You would have to favor Memphis, but the way that Minnesota scores, I think they're going to be very fearless in this series because neither team has accomplished anything. There's not really that much veteran leadership on Memphis besides Steven Adams. I think that if I told you that Ant-Man was the best player in this series, you walked away with that and said Ant-Man dominated this series, would you be shocked? I don't think you could be. Karl Anthony Towns, that he was the best player in this series, would you be shocked? I don't think you can be. The Memphis team is a team that shoots the least amount of threes in the league. And then you have Minnesota who wants to shoot a lot of threes. And the three-point shot is the biggest variance in the NBA, obviously. Ask any better. I mean, your team is up 20 and you're better and you're happy. And then the other team hits 5 straight threes and they're right back in it. Or vice versa. You take a team and they shouldn't have any problem beating a team, and then they go 4 for 20 from 3 in the first half, and you're just crying. So I think that who starts out on Karl Anthony Towns, do they start off with Jaren Jackson Jr. or Steven Adams? I think this is going to be an interesting thing because the Clippers, their strategy versus Cat is to put a smaller player on him because he's not really a banger and bruiser like that. Put a smaller player on him, and when he drives, send help off of, they generally play a non-shooter in McDaniels or Vanderbilt. So have your big be on him, and then he can help off Cat. That's the way that their strategy works. So, Jaren Jackson, if you were drawing up a guy in the league to guard Cat one-on-one, he would be maybe the ideal candidate to do it. Do they say that we'll just let him go head up, or do they adopt one of those approaches? Dylan Brooks in this series, who does he guard? Does he start out on Ant-Man or D'Angelo Russell? D'Angelo Russell, obviously, he took over. Him and Ant-Man were, tremendous closing out that Clippers game. So vice versa, how do they want to approach the the Ja Morant dilemma? I think, he's going to get a healthy dose of Pat Beverly. Pat Beverly versus, elite guards. He has a reputation, knock on wood. I don't want to say, I don't want to jig nothing, but, he's going to come after him. So it's going to be a fun series. I think a lot of points are going to be scored. A lot of shit is going to be talked. To me, it's a toss-up. In my heart of hearts, I want to go Minnesota. I just think that, depth-wise, if you go man by man, Memphis has the better team. But, the playoffs, one thing about the playoffs is you shorten your rotation. You're playing every other day. I don't think Minnesota has a guy besides Patrick Beverly that's 27 years old. So these are young guys. They can play 40 minutes, nothing. So, the depth of Memphis, one of the biggest calling cards, is going to be removed. One of the biggest calling cards of Memphis is their intensity night in and night out. And every team's going to have that because it's the playoffs. So, two of the biggest factors are going to be removed. A lot has been made about Memphis's wins totals, especially without Ja Morant. And I think if you really look at it and pay attention to it, like the biggest anomalies in basketball this season, the Suns record, Memphis record without Ja Morant, the Nuggets record missing, two of their top three, they all happened in the West. I think the West was that bad this year. So I wouldn't look at the Memphis record and say, oh, this tire fight is going to be over. I really think Minnesota has a chance to win. And, because they have enough off their bench too. Malik Beasley is someone who, averaged about 16, 18 points. He can score buckets in a hurry. This isn't really a team that can go hunting besides Ja. What I mean by go hunting is, pick and roll, what you saw from the Cavs versus the Golden State Warriors way back when LeBron would get the ball and every play he's trying to get Steph Curry into a screen. That great shot by Kyrie was the same thing. Kyrie hunted Steph Curry, got the guy matchup that he wanted. He went to work. Memphis doesn't really have too many of those guys. So, I think one of the biggest weaknesses for Minnesota is their defense, especially on the perimeter after you take away Pat Beverly. Teams hunting D'Angelo Russell, teams hunting Malik Beasley. He's not the greatest defensive player. Teams with bigger wings because they don't really have any guys that can technically guard bigger wings besides, Vanderbilt and McDaniels technically have the size to do it, but they don't really have, they have the length, but not really the size. And their shooting is so poor that it hurts the team. But they don't really have guys that can hurt Minnesota like that. So Minnesota can play small and I think get away with it. With Cat at the 5, with no rim protection, playing Malik Beasley, Ant Edwards, Russell, and Pat Beverly. They can get away with that in stretches because they're not really a pick and roll team. Once again, they're not a team that wants to shoot a lot of threes. They want to take a lot of their shots in the paint. Be interested to see if Finch goes to some, he tries a lot of things in these games. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to long stretches with zone, long stretches with box and one. Desmond Bane has been someone who's gotten buckets of late, but it's interesting to see if this is once again, can he do it in the playoffs? Playoffs are a different animal. I'll go back to it again. So this is gonna be my wild card pick, but I'm gonna take Minnesota in this one. Utah versus Dallas. Doesn't look like Luka's going to play game one. I don't see how he's going to be effective for the rest of the series. Um, I think that Utah just got the luck of the draw here. What's funny is, I just said they had the luck of the draw here, but I think they would probably beat them even if Luka would have played. I was just having a argument with my cousins, and Atlanta has just won, so I guess I can go ahead and talk about that series on the back end. I don't have to wait. But I was arguing with my cousins about Luka, and he was telling me, "Oh, Luka's one of the great playoff performers." And I said, "This great playoff performance, he did it versus the Clippers twice, and he didn't win." Like this legacy of playoff performance, you would think like he's like LeBron, or like someone who's just really like done it, or even like a Dame Lillard record of where he's knocked off teams with game winners. He's done none of that. He didn't win either one of the series. When did we start giving credit for second place trophies? Like when did that happen? But that's another story for another day. But I like Utah, their matchups in this series. There was the last game that I watched them. It was highly publicized how well Gobert guarded Luka on these switches. I think that, they were similar teams. Utah had done well in putting Luka in actions and hunting him. I just think that I just like the matchup for them. So with him being hurt, I really like the matchup for them. This is a big put up or shut up series for them. If they lose this series, even if Luka misses the first two games, there's no excuse for not winning these two games. There's no excuse to losing to Dallas without their best player. So, that's what happened to them the previous year with the Clippers, and I just don't think that they can run that back. Hopefully they're smart enough not to let that happen. So there's nothing really interesting schematically on these teams. They play so similar. You know what you're going to get from them. Jalen Brunson has struggled in a couple of playoffs, and this is the playoffs where he's going into a contract year. So I want to see how that looked. Maybe that's an interesting storyline for Dallas. For Utah, this might be their last ride. Whoever gets out of this series is getting blitzed by Phoenix, so it doesn't really matter. And you're getting blitzed. So Utah, I don't think they've beaten Phoenix in like the last 12 times. In Dallas, I think Phoenix would destroy them as well. So nothing much to talk about that. Let's go to Miami, Atlanta, because Atlanta just won. There was a major injury to Capella, and call me crazy, but I actually think that Okongwu is better than Capella. So I actually like them in that I give them a puncher's chance in that series because Miami has had so many issues. The Jimmy Butler Spo incident aside, they were free falling there towards the end of the year. And I don't really think they have the greatest matchups to guard Trae Young. Their offense has been creaky. Bam is in the COVID protocols right now, so who knows when he's going to come back, what shape he's going to be in when he comes back. Because now with the COVID protocols, Paul George is out for the Clippers. The way that it works is they're not testing anyone. They will only test you if you are exhibiting symptoms. So it's like you're actually sick. Like it's not one of those, oh man, I got COVID, but I'm not feeling anything. I'm good. These players are actually feeling ill. So, generally the players that have felt the symptoms, it has taken them time to get back their wind. It's taken them time to get back their strength. I know, Jason Tatum last year, he felt hard effects from it. Cat, hard effects from it. So it depends. Is this mild or, is he feeling extreme symptoms? Because if he's feeling extreme symptoms, then all bets are off. Because if Bam misses 3 or 4 games or is not the same Bam when he comes back in, then I would actually take Atlanta. To tell you the truth, the way that Miami has struggled. And, part of the issue for Miami is they have these 2 players, Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, who they've paid a lot of money or invested a lot of their future into, and neither one of these guys can defend. So when you put them, 2 of these guys, like I talked about hunting, that's what the playoffs are about. Where's the bad matchup? put him in and if you watch the Atlanta game today, you see that there's no more predatory motherfucker out there than Trae Young. He's gonna hunt. Okay, where is the weak gazelle? Okay, Tyler Hero, come here. I know you know the ones that hate me just look just like me. Okay, go ahead, bring that Jack Harlow over here, and I'm gonna put him in pick and roll that boy to death. I'm hunting him. I'm hunting Duncan Robinson. So that starts to hurt your depth. Because these are shooters. And Tyler Hero, pound for pound, is one of their top 2 or 3 offensive players. So if he's giving up as much as he's getting, that makes it hard. Then if you don't have any Bam in the middle to cover up, the fifth, it might be hard for them to get defensive stops. Jimmy Butler was Jimmy Butler, but to put everything on him offensively is going to be hard to do. Kyle Lowry's getting up there in age. So this is going to be an interesting series. John Collins, whether he can play or not, is going to be big. I think he's going 4-on-4 right now. So what's always interesting to me is like, how do they decide? Okay, you hear, okay, this player's going 1-on-1, he's going 3-on-3, he's going 4. Like, how do you guys decide which level he's at? Like, does he have like an energy bar like that's unseen by us common folk that lets you know when he can do 3-on-3 and 5-on-5? Like, if they can hoop, they can hoop. I don't know. But he's doing 4-on-4. He's one of the big players for them because he can do things when the ball is thrown to him in the pick and roll. If you watch the game today, there was a lot of trapping of Trae Young, and he was getting the ball out, and they were doing a lot of swinging for threes. But he's a player where he runs pick and roll with Trae. If they trap him, they can throw it to him. He can get downhill similar to Draymond Green, make decisions, finish over people. He kind of gives them their verve down the middle. He's a good mid-range jump shooter. He balances out their offense. So his health, Bogdanovich's health, he hasn't been healthy. He played a little bit today, but it wasn't his normal quality of play. So that's going to be interesting. On the Miami side of the ball, I've talked about Jimmy Butler. What shape is he in? They were talking that he wasn't, in the best shape physically. Kyle Lowry is going to have to show up big in this series. He's doing this thing where he's not shooting the ball. Is he saving it for the playoffs? I don't know. They have a lot of interesting decisions to make about who's going to play and who's not going to play. Playoffs, shortening your bench again. You have Oladipo, Duncan Robinson, Max Strus. You have Gabe Vincent, who's playing well in the regular season. A couple of these guys are going to be out of the rotation. So that's interesting to me. How do they close games? It looks like that they settled on Strus, that Strus is their starter and he's closing games. Shout out to him for that. But Tyler Hero, who's getting the ball, and what are those actions going to look like? They're a smart team, but you can't. I just don't think you can just overlook that situation that Coach Spo and Jimmy Butler had as teams fight. Like, I've never seen shit like that happen before. I've never seen that. It's rare that as a fan of basketball, I'm 37 years old. I've been watching basketball since I was 8 years old. And I've never seen a situation where the coach is literally stalking the player like, fam, what's good? And that there's a fight on the sideline that has spilled into the game to where everybody's ready to play again, but the players on the other team want to fight each other. I've never seen that. If the OGs know, like, remember the Latrell Sprewell choking out PJ Carlesimo. That was at a practice, not the game. We talking about practice, not the actual game, not the game that I die for. We talking about practice. Like, it's like the people, it's like, now we getting older, it's like the married couple who has their like knockout, drag out fights in front of you. And like, you're like, fam, like, okay, this is kind of awkward. Like, have this fight at home and be respectful and text us about what happened when you get home. Don't, like, be respectful. Like, don't, I'm uncomfortable with you doing it this way. But yeah, so whenever something like that happens, you definitely have to, take notice of that. So yeah, that series is a toss-up. Bam Adebayo misses any of those games. If he misses a game, that means that he's sick. He's sick. And if he misses a game, fam, all bets are off. Because Trae Young is by far the best offensive weapon on that team. They have nobody that can guard him. Bam Adebayo is their best defensive player. He covers up a lot of their things they need to do. He's actually a perfect type of defender for Trae Young because he can switch and stay alive on these switches. If you take him out of that game, all bets are off. So, I would say if he does play and John Collins plays, and this is even, you would probably favor Miami, maybe 6 or 7, or even Atlanta upsetting 7. And Atlanta has shown the pedigree to do this type of things. Philadelphia last year. But if Bam misses a game or two, give me the Hawks in 6. I'm gonna look at that strongly. I can't wait to that line comes out. Let me see again. Let me see if Bovada has updated that. Yeah, so they have not updated it, so we'll see what happens at the end of that. Okay, in the last series, Chicago versus Milwaukee. Only thing that's interesting to me in this series is will Chicago win the first game? Vucevic was on those teams, those Orlando teams that always win game 1 in Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee's probably looking at this like, hell yeah, we got these bum ass dudes and that had one of the worst records of all time versus the top 10 teams in the NBA. So, I don't know if there's anything really interesting in this series. They had a spark when the season started, and now they're just garbage. You went to top 10, but not mentioned at all. I think the way that you got to look at it from the Chicago side is they would need Caruso to make shots and to defend and, really harass Holiday. You would need DeRozan to have a great series. Obviously, you need Zach LaVine to have a great series. Zach LaVine has been hurt. He's had some knee issues that he's been dealing with. So that's one. You would need Vucevic to have a good series. You would need your boy Williams to really slow down Giannis. These are all, fairy tale things that we're talking about now. I think we're in fairy tale land now. So I don't know. There's nothing really interesting in this series to me. If they win game 1, I don't know. They were hot to start the season, but once again, their record, they just haven't beat anyone good. Lonzo Ball's not going to play this series. He's hurt again, knee injury. So they were winning with this defensive identity. Can they get back to it? They just don't have anyone physically that can guard Giannis. So it just looks like a series where he's just going to rampage. Now, on the opposite side of that, there are pretty thin on the wing after Middleton. So is this a series where DeRozan just goes off and Zach LaVine goes off and they're able to put ball pressure with Caruso and, Pat Williams can stand his ground? I don't see it as an option. But that first game, Milwaukee's had those first game jitters. I remember even last year when they played Miami, their first game, Milwaukee almost lost that first game. So for the gambling degenerates like me, maybe Chicago winning the first game is an opportunity to make some money. So I would look out for that. All right, so I hit all the series. I did not talk about whoever Phoenix is going to play because I think Phoenix is going to blow them out. That would be the odds-on favorite to win the title unless someone gets hurt. I talked about a lot of teams like the Clippers having an opportunity and the Nuggets having an opportunity, and I wasted my money putting in bets on them and trying to outthink the room, and it looks like Kawhi does not want to play. There's a disparity between him and Clippers management, whether he's healthy enough to play. Clippers manager says he's healthy enough to pay. Kawhi says he's not. At the end of the day, it's his body. He knows it's better than us, better than anyone doing diagnostic test. So, we have seen players come back from another injury and get hurt with another injury. Klay Thompson, John Wall, Boogie Cousins. So if he's not ready to play, he's not ready to play. Same thing with Murray. If he's not ready to play, he's not ready to play. So I think the West has been won by Phoenix, barring injury. I just don't. Even the Warriors, I think it's going to be a tough task to ask them to. But they have that championship pedigree where they've played together so much. If Klay gets hot a couple of those games, who knows? I think they're in a collision course for the Western Conference Finals, and that if they get there, all bets are off. So I don't know. Actually, let me slow down on that. I don't know. We'll see. I would pick Phoenix in that series easily, but I don't know. Booker hasn't had a great history of success versus the Warriors. So I don't know. Out East is a toss-up. You got 4 teams, 5 teams vying for it. That's what the media says. I don't believe in Boston. The Bucks, obviously, you got to give them the chance. The Nets, who knows? You got Kyrie and KD. If Ben Simmons, can work his way up to playing 20, 30 minutes a game, who knows? I think Philadelphia, they obviously have the star power, but it's Harden is the main key. I mean, I can't say that I don't believe in Boston and then watch what I've watched with Harden and say that I have strong belief in him. So I guess you would say Boston has a chance, and then Miami, they have the pedigree. If all those players start playing at the best of their ability, the sum of the parts might be strong enough for them to win the title. So right now, if I had to pick, I'll probably say the most likely bet, the smartest bet would be Phoenix, the Bucks rematch. Picking with my heart, it's Phoenix Sixers. But, we'll see. All right. I think that broke down all the games. Make some money off of my playoff predictions. The game's the game. All right, that's it for this clip. Subscribe, leave a comment, respond to all the comments. The game is the game.
So what's up, man? What's up with you otherwise, The game is a game. Always.